All right. Okay, so this, as it's written, is kind of hard to solve. It's really hard to figure out what x is. You can guess and check, but if we do what we already know how to do, it becomes real easy. This x squared is what ruins it when we try to solve it. Like if I take -6 and then I try to divide by 5. This x squared here, like I don't know how to get rid of it. Square root. That's the annoying part. But you learned a technique that actually gets rid of the x squared. That's the factoring. If I factor this, I'm going to break it into pieces and it becomes kind of easy to solve. So this one here, can somebody tell me what does this factor to become? X squared plus 5x plus 6. If I factor that, what does it turn into? Gavin? Never mind. Okay. Alejandro. X plus 2 times x plus 3. The factoring is nice because it gets rid of the power of 2. Now we just have regular x's. What's also nice is we're one step away from the answer. We're going to use a property that you guys learned in the beginning of the year. Take a second and look at this. I have some parentheses timesing another parentheses to make 0. I have something times something equals 0. Can you tell me what has to be true about the parentheses? If I know that this one times this one makes 0. Just think about it for a minute. How can I get 0 from those parentheses?
One of them has to be 0.
One of these has to be a 0.
Wait,
The only way you could have something times something equals 0 is if one of these two things is a 0. Either this is 0 times this parenthesis will make 0, or this is 0. This times 0 will also make 0. The only way this can equal 0 is if one of these two parentheses makes 0. You'd have 0 times something equals 0, or something times 0 will equal 0. Okay. Do I know which one of these parentheses equals 0?
Wait, does it matter?
No, I don't know which one equals 0. So we got to pretend, we got to solve for both cases. So let's write that down first. One parenthesis has to equal 0.
Wait,
That's the only way, if I times them together, that I get a 0, is if one of those two things is 0.
they can't both be 0? Could.
Yeah, but how are you going to... You can't make both of these 0 at the same time for this particular problem. So, there's two cases. Case number 1 is if this parenthesis was 0. All right, case number 1 is when x plus 2 equals 0. If x plus 2 equals 0, then 0 times whatever this is would make it 0. That's the first case. The second case is when the other thing equals 0. So x plus 3 could be 0. I don't know which one is 0, so we got to take both of them as examples. All right, and all I did was pull these from the parentheses. Either the x plus 2 is 0 or the x plus 3 is 0. Okay. The first one, for case number 1, what would x have to be so that this turned into a 0? Yeah, if I'm minus 2, do a little math. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. For this first case, x is negative 2. This is one of the solutions to our original problem. X could be negative 2. What about for the other case? If I wanted x plus 3 to be 0, what would x have to be? If I solve that, you get x equals negative 3. This could be the other answer. Because if x was negative 3 plus 3 makes 0. 0 times whatever this becomes makes 0. These are the two answers to my equation. Negative 2 and negative 3. These two are both answers to this initial problem. Should I check it just to make sure? Yes. I'll just pick one of them. I'll just check one of them. Let's check negative 2. If I put negative 2 into this original problem, I should get 0. So let's see. Negative 2 to the power of 2 plus 5 times negative 2 plus 6 should equal 0. Right, all I did was substitute the x for negative 2. Negative 2 to the power of 2 is 4. 5 times negative 2 is... and 6 makes 0. So here, 4 and negative 10 makes... plus 6 makes 0. Yeah, it works for negative 2. It's also going to work for negative 4 or negative 3. So let me just refresh what we did. This was our original problem. We're trying to solve for x. We know we're solving because there's an equal sign. That's really hard to solve with the x squared, but you know how to factor that into two little parentheses. If you know that these two things times together to make 0, you know that one of these by themselves has to be 0. The only way you can times two things and get 0 is if one of them is 0. So you set that up. Either the first one is 0 or the second one is 0. If you solve the first one, you got negative 2. If you solve the second one, you got negative 3. These are the two possible answers for x. Most of the time you get two answers, but a lot of the time, most of the time you get two answers, but sometimes you only get one answer. Most times you get two though.
Where'd you get the 5 and the 6? Or they check?
Down here?
Yeah.
Remember, this is x squared plus 5x plus 6. So all I did was replace the x with negative 2. So it's negative 2 squared plus 5 times negative 2 plus the 6. Good so far? Yep. I'll try another one.